All right. Welcome to part 2 of the Shyster's interaction. So we'll begin again with the basis. Okay. Let's begin. This will be a little bit more detail and show a couple different models. We'll begin with point A to point B. Remember that point B can be and probably is many different points. Many different points that the path is to take. Okay, they can be considered branch paths, meaning the Shyster may, the Carney Barker, however you want to do it, may want to run more than one branch path at one time. In other words, you can inhabit more than one branch path at one time. Now, that's as simple as the man-made game theory overlays. So we'll go like this. We'll go atheism as an example, and we'll go libertarian as an example, and then we'll go anarchist as an example, right? They begin to overlay each other, just overlapping man-made game theories or fictions, okay? And remember, once you start to build on a fiction, now if you take your educational system, which is a model, but it's made up of many models. It's a fractional model, a fractalized model. It's a singular sideshow made up of many different models, from language to law to social interaction. Then you can bust every one down, such as social interaction, SI, into very many differing parts. All right. In general, it is when somebody has identified the NN models, the natural models, and have slightly manipulated and modified them, social cohesion and behavior modification, into the man-made models. Okay, so when we go back, we have to remember that in technical terms, the posit of A is a point in time and space, or time and place, which would be T plus P. And with the injection, because you've got your crowd, remember lex lumine paratus again. Remember, the crowd can be from 1 to all. It's irrelevant in the numerical sense, other than with an increase in population for the crowd, you increase D, detractors. Okay? Now, this is not going to take nullifiers into example, because nullifiers, depending on how you want to run your nullification models, we'll go in, and the nullification models can be as simple as picking one out of a crowd, one unit out of a crowd. That's beginning to be lex lumine paratus, right? Conversion to reverse lex lumine paratus, okay, and bust, let's say, we'll take more than one unit. Remember, because this is an infection of one of the crowd at a time, and it reaches critical mass and begins to shove the entirety of that group insular. We'll take libertarians, for example, on that, to move them all into atheism and libertarian. You understand there's always something added into there. Remember, because it's justification. One thing must be justified, therefore all things that the original vector carrier, okay? Well, he's the Carney Barker, but he's a vector, okay? That justification will begin to, it'll be like, well, I don't know if y'all know CB radios or anything else, but when other channels begin to bleed over. Sir Randy Tooth will know. It's on the ham stuff where other frequencies start to bleed over onto another channel. Well, he's originally wanting to do a singular information injection, okay, to begin the cycle, the game cycle. All right, and pull in, remember, your inducement. Okay, plus we'll go ahead and throw want in there because it's everybody's want, not needs. So anyway, once it begins to cycle and everything like that, you have to remember that nullification can occur to a singular unit, and which will then begin to affect other units. Okay, and other units will begin to break down from their singular parts into their individual components. Okay, now that can go further and further and further. All right, again, it's a nullification not of just the mechanic but everything else. Now, remember that the vector, the Carney Barker, we can go CBV or Carney Barker vector. The information that he presents here will automatically be containing any other justifications. Okay, any other justifications will be whatever from it's irrelevant, but the models will always bleed over. Okay, and they're always man-made, socially cohesive, and behavior modification models. All right, reconstructive. All right, but with his slight personality disorders or abnormal, or just regular stuff. Just regular people do this all the time too. You know, it's like a party line, but with humanity or men. Okay, it's like the party line, right? The problem is the crowd is picking up the phone and listening to the Carney Barker. Okay, and then somebody else picks up the phone, and then somebody else calls somebody else and says, "Go pick up the phone and let's go." Okay, so anyway. So along the lines, at different points, there's always an injection of other information. All right, now that's where your news media will show you most stuff. They'll say, this in New York, therefore you must be worried about this, when instead you should say the people in that location should take care of it. But that's not what is ever said, is it? No. What is said is you must worry about that. But by the way, Iran might get nuclear weapons. Oh, my God, we're all going to die. By the way, we need to go vote. By the way, we need gold and silver as money. By the way, nothing works. By the way, fiction is reality. By the way, fiction is fiction, but let's go ahead and make it reality anyway. It's stupid shit. Anyway, so along the points. Now, that doesn't mean that the Carney Barker won't go back and someone in the crowd. Now, that's where you can pack the crowd with shills. But let me explain something to you. A lot of people attribute too much to a paid shill. When I prove daily or all the time when I do a video or anything else, there are free shills out there. Zombies will step right on up and get after it. Secondly, the detractor also does the work of a shill, though he doesn't realize it, because he reinforces one side or the other, and he creates the voter trap, the Ponzi pyramid he's going to go into with a limited amount of choices. Okay, because he's heavily invested not in nullifying this game cycle. The detractor is extremely interested in building his own pyramid and instituting something he heard. He's a repropagation parrot of another man-made model. Okay, so his Ponzi has to be that it's going to be an automatic deal. I told you it's over and over. These are automatic things. Okay. I'm not saying education or anything's bad. I'm saying people are not realizing what they're carrying with them in their own heads, and especially the made-up stuff, okay? Because, as I've said, the education models, and I put that book up there that said it specifically, the education models are behavior modification, and they're designed for a very specific set of things. Okay, whether the teacher knows it or not is irrelevant because nobody questions the provenance of the so-called information that's coming out. We'll get back to interaction over here. Anyway, so on this education model, you have to remember that it's designed to put any player or individual or well, it wouldn't be a zombie at that time, but it's designed to behaviorally modify any player that comes into contact with it, and they will automatically repropagate it. It must be true because I said so, that's why. That's just how this goes. That's always how this goes. All right? Each one after that repropagates it. You've heard this over and over and over. Multi-level marketing schemes. That's what this shit is. And I'm not saying Amway is, but you get the point, right? That's a Ponzi pyramid. It's always a Ponzi pyramid. But the deal is, what happens when you're creating a Ponzi pyramid and you're being run by a Ponzi pyramid who is run by a Ponzi pyramid who is run by a Ponzi pyramid? You get the point? You start to see fucking problems occur. I told you why people worship tools as if they are some kind of magic physical evolution when all they are is tools, right? And then have the balls to say a tool that I created is more important than I, right? And secondly, I should pray to the tool, technology, whatever have you, okay? And that tool is somehow proof of some magic evolution that somebody that was running a Ponzi pyramid introduced into a population. Okay. Shithead rabies over and over, okay. So, anyway, moving along. So, since people confuse fictions with themselves, it should not amaze you how screwy this gets. What part of the problem is that there is no balance to this. There is zero, big O zero balance to any of this. Other than fiction repropagating fiction, which might balance fiction, but generally not, because it sets it off into a new branch path that's screwy, that gets slightly modified by some shyster and son of a bitch that's sitting there trying to beat you to the door to control you, or for a profit. A fictional profit. Okay, so anyway, as you go through here, let's jump back. Again, let me reiterate this one or re-clarify this one, that the Carney Barker demands the voter trap. When he demands a voter trap or prisoner dilemma is a little bit larger in scope, but you get the point. That's what the education system technically does, is create a prisoner dilemma. Okay. Now, it can be said that knowledge is bad, right? Now, you get into these arguments, knowledge is exceptionally bad, and there is something to be said for technological evolution. Got air conditioning. I'm not saying there's not downsides. There's downsides to everything that will ever fucking occur. You will find something bad about anything that ever fucking occurs. The attempt is to balance it, all right? And a nullifying factor, if you're running nullification game theory, will begin to set some of that to the. It'll open the field up, because I'm getting ready to show you on the Carney Barker. If he demands a voter trap, he limits the choices that Lex Lumine Paratus will carry out, even under influence, with heavily modified wants, okay? That is automatic. Where there was no technical limitations except for the man-made models, correct? Which are limiting on purpose to keep you on the general reservation. And again, it seems like a lot of parrot repropagation or parrot memes or ideas, etc. They're just constant reworkings of Ponzi's over and over and over again. Some slight technological advancement. Let's all run this out. So-and-so says, oh my God, we're all going to die. Magic collapse of somehow a fiction fails. And you say, how did the fiction fail? You'll say, because I said so, that's why. And you'll say, but I go to the bank and I can get cash. Cash is money because everybody else said so, that's why. I'll show you another little Carney Barker trick here in just a minute. And you say, but excuse me, just because you said so doesn't mean it's real. The tree is real, the rock is real, and I am real. And they'll say, yes, but the fiction collapsed because I said so. That's why. You must comply, peasant. And you go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So, and I'm just going to use it as an example. I'm not saying it anyway. Let's say Gerald Celente doesn't like Fed Reserve. Well, that's good. You know he's full of nothing but behavior modification, and you know the Federal Reserve does nothing but social modification. That's a very true thing. They attempt on the Federal Reserve side to keep the fiction and the mechanics running smoothly. That is correct. A smoothly running mechanical system. Their section that they handle, that they cover. And what does Gerald Celente do? Well, he repropagates his fiction just like they do theirs. But one will swear the other is horrible and evil, and the other doesn't even know that one exists, but it doesn't matter. You get the point. Setting into contention two things that are, all they're going to do is fight over Lex Lumine Paratus. Hey, how many can I get? How many can I get? The deal with the Federal Reserve is, in the most part, they were those insular pyramid Ponzi units built solely on fiction, on wants, not needs. And it works. It's a mechanical system that works, that has some balance. It's obviously not all the way balanced like it should be. Now, Gerald Celente will tell you all banks run everything, and the New World Order is a bank system. When, in fact, the New World Order is something that does not exist and is fiction, and you want to believe in it so bad that you'll come on the internet and repropagate and do this same fucking Shyster's interaction over and over. Again, and I've said that this is a real world. The Federal Reserve doesn't come to my house and tell me what to do. At any time, I can start and use an alternative currency. That's it. That's how hard this is. Technically, I can go tell the Federal Reserve I want to become a bank branch, an independent bank. I don't have to charge interest. I don't have to join the Federal Reserve. I don't have to act under a banking law. Those are real things. Does Gerald Celente tell you that? Nope. He's telling you right now the world's going to detonate and everybody's going to die. Do you people not see it? I'm not knocking Gerald Celente. I'm saying if I had a myopic point of view, I'd blame everything on the Federal Reserve. Ghosts are an excellent thing to blame everything on. Like I said, Ben Bernanke, nobody comes to my house and tells me what I must and must not do. Gerald Celente will swear that's exactly what they do. You have a lot of people tell you, well, the Federal Reserve makes you go to an independent bank and they make you take mortgages and make you lose your job, and that these all things. Well, it's always the Federal Reserve's fault. That's what it is. Now, ask Gerald. Now, when you see what Gerald Celente or Max said, we're just using examples, and you got to ask them. Well, excuse me, Gerald. They don't make me do anything. Tomorrow I can start busting out bills of exchange or whatever have you, and do it lawfully, not like these retards out here doing stupid-ass promissory notes. How exactly does that fiction fail, Gerald, Mr. Celente? How? How does that fail? It's all fiction. It's all bullshit. How does it fail? And I want to point this out again. The Federal Reserve offered those redone mortgage deals where you can go in and have your mortgage redone. It might be over by now. I noticed none of these people talked about it. They're all about, saving the world from the New World Order, but you'll notice they never talked about the Federal Reserve offering a mortgage investigation so they could make sure it wasn't fraudulent. Isn't that right, Max Kaiser? I know she never said nothing about that. Ain't that right, Alex Jones? Indeed, so much about the truth. So, I'm not taking up for them, but I'm not taking up for him. It doesn't matter. You can replace Gerald Celente with any party, and you can replace the Federal Reserve with any other party. They're going to fight with fictions, not facts. That's it. You throw in Kaiser, according to Kaiser, everything in the world is manipulated by the Federal Reserve, and there is no speculation. In fact, according to Kaiser, Salente, and everybody else, they are not the ones that are speculators that create bubbles, when that's exactly what they do. That is a trend, Gerald Salente. You create the trends. You do Lex Lumine Paratus and the Shyster's interaction. I didn't say I didn't like Gerald Salente. I said, how is he different? How is he different than Art Bell? How is he different from Jeff Rentz? How are they different from the Federal Reserve? They're not. They're exactly the same fucking thing. Now, I was hoping I wouldn't forget about this one, so I'll go back to this. This is what I love, and you'll see a lot of this. It's something you do have to be careful of. I have a Shyster start out a game cycle, correct? He's trying to get you to go somewhere. And, or quote, awake, unquote, the sheeple, right? At that same time, what he'll do, you'll see Hitchens does it, all the atheists do it. All the atheists do it, all right? Because remember, they're working off of fictions. Points of view only, not facts. Just stack them fucking presumptions and fictions, assumptions, implications, and inferences as if they are real. Just got to stack them. Just keep stacking. Keep on stacking. And to build an argument, a pyramid, that's it. That's all this is, okay? And to get the rubes in the door. All right, so what a Shyster will do, this is what I love on YouTube. I fucking love this. Raw Dog, Corey C., Pontifex, these people have pointed it out over and over, and I noticed a lot of people don't, they've pointed, I mean, I pointed it out, but the point is they know of it, and they've said it before as well. Sir Randy Tooth may have pointed it out. I think he's pointed it out. Don't know if he did, but I think he did. I can't quite remember. But anyway, what you'll do is you'll set up a Shyster, or a Shyster sets up his pyramid and starts along with it. What he'll do is go find another Shyster. The game, and you'll find this a lot with science, and it's not just because I said so, that's why. That's what Shysters always use. Because I said so, that's why. Sell me your faith, we'll be good to go. It'll become reality. That's libertarians, all these other people. The other Shyster, it doesn't matter whether he's involved in a game cycle or not. Okay? But in general, this Shyster will see some other Shyster that he thinks, well, he's close enough to me that I can use his information to board off of, jump the ramp off of and get a little bit bigger. Or it buoys up my fictional argument. Like I said, Hitchens and them, that's all they did. So what they'll do is they'll point to, and especially if the Shyster's running something called a study. I love that. Or statistics. Okay? And anyway, so Shyster 1 will point to Shyster 2, and this is what he'll say. I'm right because I said so, that's why. I'm right because he said so, that's why. We are right because we said so, that's why. Well, that's just fascinating. And it's even better when second Shyster is hung up with a ton of damn backup, right? Other Shysters. That's what happens. Again, you're looking at a network forming of nothing but Shysters. All right? And they're all pointing at each other saying, hey, he's right because I said so. And this guy's, whether he exists or not is irrelevant. But this guy gets to say, because I'm right, because I said so, that's why to begin with. He says I'm right, and because we say so, then we're right. Nothing more than that. No proof or fact needed. Just point at some vague studies that are half-assed done, Maybe say, well, there's black holes, and therefore that fixes everything. It's like, fuck. But that's the way it goes. All right? Now, that's a more complete interaction. That's more along the line. This is just just one of those many, not quite natural models, but it's where a Shyster will identify a natural model and then modify it to fit his needs instead of using actual fact. You know, now there is also, this has to be clarified, that they do run cycles in abeyance. Now this is just what happens. You can call it ignorance, but it's in abeyance because they do not know of other information. Okay, that there's other information that's out there and they don't know it. Now, what most of what you'll come across, and this is true, zombies usually operate off of the abeyance of reality or other fact. All right? There's a very limited, remember, they've been set into a very limited prisoner dilemma and voter trap going to be, because the Shyster has set it in motion and so has eliminated a lot of choices. Okay? Because he only presents very, very, very select data. We call that science, too. So anyway, what I'm saying is there's a difference between science and what they call science now. Okay, so anyway, the parrot zombie, PZ, will work in abeyance of all other things and say, because, now this is what I love, because the Shyster said so, and that other Shyster said so, and these two Shysters point at each other, so they must be right because they said so. That's why, because I have sold my faith to them. That means anything else that exists is a big old fat zero. It is not, because there is no place for that within this formula. Now, this is where they get extremely pissed off when you begin nullification. Nullification pisses people off. Good. Again, the worst thing is emotional caltropping. And that's just a bottom basement fucking game model, cycle model that CBV will do, Carney Barking Vector will do. Basic emotional caltropping. Hitchens does it, everybody. Fake outrage, all this other shit. I mean, they don't never have a fucking position. They have zero. They have naught. They have nothing. But you can't get to B unless you make it look right. And so there you go. So there's that part of civilization covered. I'm sure there's a little bit more to it, but those are what I wanted to clarify was that, and some people, again, on branch pathing, I guess they don't understand what they're doing, is they're adding more than one imaginary, fictional, dreamland, Disneyland information bit in there and inducing more than one branch path at one time, so that no matter what occurs, this is so highly insular, correct? That's so highly insular in abeyance of reality, in a vacuum, that it ensures that when they reach B, before they declare a win, it will be a unification of all the zombies, the Lex Lumine Paratus. That they'll be unified. Okay? Once unification occurs, like I said, you can still nullify anywhere along the line that you want. I'm proof of that. You can nullify the fuck out of anything. And once they begin, so let me clarify on how to bust them into component parts. Remember, the component parts are all weaknesses because you've already identified a lot of the models. Okay? How you combat the models and what specific. I notice a lot of you say, I don't know what to say. That's your fucking problem. What is the point? Nullification for balance. Okay. So when you nullify, when you begin to nullify one, as I've showed, when you begin to nullify one, the fractures form, and these are natural tendencies. All right? The dumbass Carney Barker's already done all the work for you. He's already built the pyramid. It's already weak as fuck. All right? It's on unbaked brick. You know what I mean? The pyramid's weak as fuck. It's not going to work right. Just a little tiny shoves here and identifying specific fractures in it, and boop, done. It just detonates, pow, overnight. You know, just within a few minutes, pow. Like I said, 300 years of society and history can be undone in a 3-minute video fairly quick. Anyway, so once you identify that each one is getting worked, right, the component parts, the component units, citizen units, whatever have you, parrot zombies, it doesn't take too long to begin to amplify, because the carny barker is going to work the other side. When he's up here saying, no, oh my God, no, any external factors coming in don't count. Facts do not count. Only my pyramid counts. Only my fictions count. So once you begin nullifying the fictions, Lex Luminae Paratus is left with a serious fucking problem. A, they can't repropagate any Lex Luminae, all right, any Lex whatsoever. They can't repropagate the fictions correctly, okay, because they're not a cohesive unit anymore, feeding off each other. Again, this is also in abeyance of the natural models that I have as of yet not identified, where certain forms of information are passed without direct contact, verbal contact, or anything else. Literally, a unit can be in a vacuum, the pyramid of itself, and yet still and it's not often, but still grab information from Lex Luminae Paratus in another location at the same time and pass it both ways. That is a weird deal. Some people will call it synchronicity, and then you got David Icke saying, we're all one, let's touch wieners and hug trees and hump on rocks and shit, and it's like, what the fuck? But anyway, the point is, once I'm not going to call it synchronicity, because that's not at all what it is. It's simple information passing from, on biomechanics, and there's just not enough data in there to identify how it works, okay? And unfortunately, in the science aspects anymore, the studies are shit. I'll agree with Integral on a couple of things. The studies are shit. The science the logic is fucking flawed all to hell, and is so highly biased as to be a joke. And then on top of that, you've got people that will sit there and say, but it was never flawed. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? It's flawed to begin with because you're subjective and you're fucking insane. All right, so anyway, that just fucks the whole thing up. You don't get any pure data out of it. You just get fucking varied opinion passed, fobbed off as fucking science. Anyway, again, how do I justify justification? What I want to do, So, there you go on that. There was more. I'm going to stop after this video. I don't want to do any more on it anyway. It's a lot of fucking effort for nothing. Obviously for nothing. Okay? But I will tell you this. This is an interesting thing that you will catch. We'll talk about Bernie Mandeville right quick. Well, technically we're not going to talk about his story, but he led me to a posit that's very interesting in the game cycle deal. And I know people love talking about the Matrix, but it's kind of obvious they don't get anything about what the fucking movie was saying. On this aspect is that, and somebody had mentioned gayness, and I was like, well, social gayness, the corporatized gayness, is a completely different deal, okay? It's a political animal that was designed, okay, and took off into Lex Luminae Paratus just instantly, and just fucking retardation, all right? Social gayness, or the Shyster's gay, all right, or the Shyster's libertarian, or the Shyster's, blah, blah, blah. Pick something. It doesn't fucking matter, okay? And one of the things that you'll catch is that when you've got a majority that's running some type of societal pyramidal norm, right? Pyramidal norm. That the individual units, they go about their business, but they're generally socially cohesive. And they don't actually think about what they're doing. Okay? They would do what you'd call shallow thinking, which is they just basically follow the models or the bricks that the Shysters have laid down and overlaid and overlaid and modified and overlaid and modified and overlaid. Okay? The dynamic over the top of dynamic man trying to force a static path, singular static path, all right? And you got to say, well, what the fuck? And then, of course, you've got the true Shysters out there that they identify as some of the other groups, like the multinational corporations, attempting to heavily drive this and modify everything, okay? Always the same fucking thing, always trying to shove everything into what they want, which generally just work for me or do some blah, blah, blah. Anyway, supposedly for the betterment of humanity, though, let me explain to you people, nobody fucking asked. That's not a point that's ever conceded. However, now doing this comes into a little bitty deal. Now, some people will consider it to be, well, actually, I'm not going to equate it to any other thing, but let's look at the Matrix movie aspect. Nobody seems to understand that when certain things occur, it seems natural that a certain percentage or a small percentage or small minority of abnormalities occur. What you call abnormalities is very simple. To me, it is a minority group that is not bigger than the majority, but that do naturally occur. Some that would be like your natural gay. Now, hold on. I'm not saying that even in the smallest tribal units, that it can be said that gay is societally created. However, I will reserve, as I said in one of my comments, I will reserve a smallest amount of doubt for the biomechanics, okay? Because it is true that biomechanically we do change by the minute, by the second, etc. Okay? You're a sack of chemicals. If something gets a little off track, okay, physically, it does change things. Okay? All right. However, that's where you're supposed to have the mental capacity over a 5-year-old and control urges without external forces. That pyramid fucking Ponzi model by itself introduced external forces. Okay, but you can forget about self-control in those aspects. Anyway, so let's say that is one thing, and then, of course, you'll automatically have a natural detractor that says, I don't like this, I quit. Okay, that's fine, that occurs. Always a small minority. Have a small minority that says, we must run this. We must run everything because we're smarter than everybody else because I said so, that's why. And then you always have somebody that comes in and says, we must help you control this. We'll be your buddies. Because we said so, that's why. All right, so as civilization gets into that stupid-ass point, it also creates the Frankenstein monster. Okay? Just like it creates a societal gay, which is not naturally gay. They are and they ain't the same thing. I mean, an almost natural tribal unit does not technically, if you ask me, create a natural gay, but the deal is, I'm just going to call it a natural gay there. Okay? All right. But that, because I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to reserve the natural biomechanical changes, NBCs. And so, anyway, when you get into the societal gays, that is a completely separate issue, or societal minorities. Okay, that's a completely separate issue. But the society that's running these game theories and these models create the Frankenstein monsters that go after it. That's across the board. Now, you'll always have natural detractors. In general, what they would do is either attempt to comply the best that they could, which goes into your self-control models, which don't evidently exist anymore, and instead they modify themselves in some ways to become the enemy combatants or the terrorists. Okay? Freedom fighters, everything else. There's no emotion here. I don't care who wins. It's irrelevant. Nobody asked any of them, but they're going to do it anyway. They will do this as the day is long. As a train goes down the tracks, and if you step out in front of it, you get splattered. I told you people, you cannot step in front of the machine. Okay, societal or otherwise. You step in front of the machine, and you're going to get smashed. The machine don't fucking stop because you said so, that's why. The machine keeps going because there's a very select few minorities that run that. Okay? Now, you can nullify them just as easy as you can nullify this. And let me tell you, again, we're going to get in a deal where who asked you? And you better be damn careful, because all the alternatives I hear about magic, anarchy, and stuff like this are such stupid fucking 3-year-old designs. It is hilarious. It is fucking hilarious. I didn't say agree with this, but you're still under the impression that a military wouldn't exist, and somehow this fucking shit with this bullshit with magically people ain't going to be mean if we just all laid down our arms. Really, not even Jesus Christ was that fucking stupid, but you people just take the cake. Okay? So anyway, that is where you'll also find, now I'll throw this in here just to screw around with you. That's where Jesus steps in. He says, yes, a lot of things are exactly bullshit. One of the bullshit you got to deal with, and that you better get ready to deal with, is that render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Caesar loves his fiction. Give him his fiction. After all, he created that fiction. If you don't like it, I would suggest you move. For Jesus, it was more along the lines, well, I'll just redesign and nullify a whole bunch of crap. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. I'm saying if you'll read closer to what he was doing, hell, he talks about the law of contract and a whole bunch of other shit. Anyway, that's how I see it, though. Point is, there you go. All right. Now, as far as enlightenment or anything else is concerned, the whole point was to do for yourself. Do for yourself. You knock off that bullet point and you go, okay, I'm no longer interested in external forces, and I've identified these variables or fictional constants, which are the models inside my coconut, why I should read this, why do I fall for this, why is it education taught me this and said it is, and it must be because they said so, that's why. But also because you walk over here and you say, well, the internal factors of the natural models in, and once I've identified that, I can institute models I create. Let's go SMs. Self-models that I create, and therefore control CU, or constant urges, right? Natural urges, okay? As one excellent commenter put on my video, you can choose not to have sex and therefore choose not to be gay. Believe it or not, these things are very, very simple. His comment was actually better than my comment in the video, but the point was I wasn't shooting for pithy one-liners. I was shooting for the basic interactions, okay? Now, in general, this is talking more about the social interactions than anything else, because it still doesn't deal with an individual, with an individual model that you institute. Okay? Now, how you come across the individual models, for the foreigner will find the law where he finds it, so will the stranger. Stranger in a strange land, because it doesn't exist. That's strange. Anyway, once you begin doing individual models for yourself on how will I deal with, right? How will I deal with these points? I've identified this. Why do I want to do that? Okay, let's take this as I'll just self-control. We'll use a Buddhist model. We'll use part of a Zen model. We'll use whatever you want to do, really, whatever you want to do. The point is, once you're at this base element, then you got to remember you can interfere with anything else, because you're not interfering with something that's real. You're interfering with something that all these Lex Luminae Paratus carry in their coconut. I didn't say you're not going to institute a better system. You're going to institute by force something that you want because you said so. That's why. That is not self-control. And that's not a natural model. That's just you demanding that all must comply because you don't like everything. At the same time, you're never going to be able to nullify this. You were not one of the original con artists that designed it. Only they get the payouts, unless you don't understand a Ponzi scam, a pyramid scam. They designed that shit. They got the fucking payouts. That machine is so fucking big, it's unreal. And it's unreal, and it's that fucking big. Okay? That's the way this works. That is the way this works. That does not mean people walk around and they look at these things. What they generally do is work the robotic functions, the meat robot, MR, the meat robot, with an overlay of the man-made, and just basic functions of the meat robot are carried on. I need to go to the bathroom, need to eat, need to drink something, and then the man-made models are overlaid over that because of the education models, and it becomes, I need to eat, so I got to go to work, so I got to go get money, so I got to pay insurance, so I got to do these massively complicated fictions. Okay? You see the point? That's what they do. There is no differentiation between the natural and the man-made. Or, I mean, there's just no differentiation there. None. They are the fucking same to them. You got to leave that alone. If they, like I said, there are problems. I've said this, but I just seem to be repeating myself. But there are a lot of problems that you'll see in these societies over. It doesn't make a fuck what design it is, what fictional fucking design it is. It's always a pyramid scam, and it's always a fictional fucking design. It's always faith-based, and that's from atheism to everything else. Okay? They're not true atheists anyway. If they're true atheists, they just walk the fuck away. They don't want to be true atheists. They want to sell their carny barking, Lex Luminae Paratus. That's, again, Shyster pointing at Shyster, pointing at Shyster, pointing at Shyster. Everybody's pointing at each other saying we're right because we said so. That's why. When all you had to do was just be an atheist, go shut the fuck up and go live your life, but you didn't do that. You never do that. Because you've got the zombie rabies. All right. So anyway, and all along these massively complicated deals, there's no way that that's going to stop. You have to leave it to them to decide that there is something wrong. And that's always going to occur. Right? City Gobble did a video over Sir Raw Doglet's midlife crisis, right? It's not a midlife crisis. It happens to you your entire life. Some things are big enough for you to stop and think about. It's a rare deal where you come across the point where you realize that you are not the man-made models that have been handed to you. Like the magic of a job makes a man, and if you don't have a job, then you're not a man, even though 50 years ago you didn't get a job because everybody knew that was a fucking scam. Fuck the corporations, and we'll grow our own food. Yet they don't talk about that. Do you see how long that fucking game cycle is? And that doesn't even count the other fictional attachments that have been introduced. In fact, I watched a deal on PBS about how at one time they were, and this was true with Bernie Mandeville, the flight of the bumblebees, bumbletards. But prior to that, they were really worried about printing presses, the first printing presses, because there was no regulation on who was allowed to speak and what they were allowed to say. They were worried about it screwing this up. Well, the ABA Journal in 1920 said that during World War I. Well, people forgotten the government. They're gotten tired of it and throwing it out the door. Fuck this. We got to do something about it. We got to run our propaganda operations and put everything back on track. Well, this is not new. This is all the fucking time, every generation. Though you tend to have a blowout every 70 generations, because it seems like the old-timers, not the new shitheads that are stupid running the corporations, fucking idiots. Anyway, but you go back to the old-timers, we'll just define them as old-timers, and in those regards, they knew how to reboot or slightly modify a system every 70 years to keep it somewhat dynamic. It's dynamic for the bump, the spike, and then she levels out. Okay? And you have to hit that bump, that bubble, and that bubble's got to blow smooth the fuck out, and then she'll level out. That's right. You just got to have a spike and then a blowout. And then it'll level. But it's all fictitious in nature. So the magic economic collapse, I still don't. I guess if you want to color in your color book and call it real, that's fine with me, dude. That just means you absolutely believe in that, okay? That's your fucking problem. So if you think a fiat money system could collapse when it's all based on fiction, then hey, you're fucking genius, and you deserve it if it does. But for the few of us that are not going to deal with it in that manner, then we already know how that will actually work, okay? And then it'll come down to nothing more than parrot versus zombie. That's what that will come down to. Who has the most parrots or zombies? Who will fight hardest over a fiction and who won't? That's what that is. That's all that is. So, anyway, you can see how much fun it is. And yes, it is true that they'll use the war game theory or the conflict game theory where you split your population and you force them to fight with each other. And that does, in a way, keep balance, some balance across the board. Not much. In fact, it never fucking solidly works. But as usual, they don't want actual balance. They want a balance they control. Therefore, they do, like I just showed you, they set the models in motion and set the prisoner dilemma and the voter trap into the point that you do not have enough choices. Now, you do, but the deal is you're not going to see them if you're inside the fucking scam. If they've got you in the sideshow tent, you're not going to see it. It's too late. Your faith sale's already gone. It would have to be just by pure accident that you stopped and said, something's wrong. Or another external force comes into play. And either you've got another CBV, and you'll see this all the fucking time too, CBV attempting to expand his pyramid Ponzi. So what he does is he slides over and kipes your fucking zombies. Sweet, right? That's constant. And it keeps that population crowd, the Lex Lumine Paratus, bouncing back and forth. Now look at Mark Dice, for example. He's done a set of really good videos. What he's actually doing, let's see if he's smart enough to catch it, he's bouncing the population back and forth. Right? The detractors are doing all his work for him. Remember, because the Carney Barkin vector Doesn't you don't have to carry the game cycle all the way to the very end. All right? They're not nullifiers. That's not what it is. They're trying to lead that horse to water. They carry it part way. They let Lex Lumina Paratus finish it. And one part of Faith's sale is getting them to work for you. And one part of that is when they become detractors for another CBV. You understand? Pyramid to pyramid to pyramid, and they just make the racetracks. And each pyramid being a racetrack, and each model being a racetrack that they can't get out of. Okay? Because they will not modify that themselves. Alright, so I don't know if this was helpful or not. Probably not. I'll go ahead and kill it after this, because you can get into other basic models, the small models, the tiny models that are used. Don't know what to tell you on that, other than that's the way it goes. You have to identify them. There ain't no need in asking me no fucking questions. It's right there. It's right in your fucking coconut, son. Don't know why you'd be asking me. Alright, so that being said, this is a good thing and a bad thing, because once you start to open the field and you allow the nullification, you'll allow more options to present themselves. Alright, so Lex Luminae Paratus can become and be nullified in part and stop falling for scam artists and con artists. And it opens up the options, right? Here's the problem. This is a never-ending fight. It never, ever stops. Ever. That's where you got to jump over here, and you got to remember the system creates the Frankenstein monster. It creates the Carney Barker vector. Okay? It creates the Carney Barker vector, who therefore repropagates, and here we go again. Now, the social system automatically creates the Frankenstein monster, who automatically wants to go out and repropagate the system, with only slight modifications, and always for the benefit of the Carney Barker vector, which is you. You're the one doing it, not me. Ah, that's right, that's you. That's right, you heard one time this. I heard. Done. Anyway, most of it is a lack of self-control and zero individualism, especially when they call themselves individualists. So you'll truly begin to see, this is what I love about this. Let me explain one more thing. This is where people go, oh, this one's co-intel pro, or he's a shill, or he's this, or he's that. You do understand he could just be a fucking idiot parrot zombie, right? Doing the same thing as you, shilling for free, because you don't even see what the fuck you're doing, but you're gonna blame somebody else for doing that. You better be careful. You're doing the same fucking thing. Alright, so that's it. I'm not going to do any more of these. If you people can't get it after this, you got fucking problems. Alright? That's just the base mechanics of that. Alright? That doesn't touch the natural stuff, like I said in the last one. Feel free to do that yourself. Okay? So I ain't going to have to.